Good evening. I call the January 16th, 2024 regular board meeting of the Richland 2 Board of Trustees to order. The agenda for tonight's meeting has been published and made available publicly. May I please have a motion regarding the approval of the agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Nash.
I move to approve the agenda for the January 16th, 2024 board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion has been made by Mrs. Nash, seconded by Mrs. Agostini to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All right. I'll tell you what, to facilitate, oh, there we go. All right, if that's correct on the screen, board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion carries. We will move to item 3.1, executive session. May I have a motion to go into executive session?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Washington.
I move to convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing receipt of legal advice regarding an insurance matter, receipt of legal advice regarding a litigation update, student appeals, employment recommendations and certified releases, a personnel matter regarding the superintendent's contract extension, and a contractual matter regarding board legal services.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Nash and Mrs. Washington, and seconded by Mrs. Agostini. To go into executive session. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion carries. The board will now enter into executive session. May I have a motion to end executive session?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini.
I move that we adjourn executive session at 7:57 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Agostini, seconded by Ms. Washington, to end executive session at 7:59, is that, and resume public session. Is there any discussion? I misspoke at 7:57. Seeing no discussion, board members, please vote.
If you're waiting on me, mine hasn't popped up. I vote in the affirmative.
All right, is it? Just be on the safe side, let's, all those that voted in the affirmative, please raise your right hand and we'll. All right, the vote is 7 yes, 0 no. Motion passes. There we go. All right, we'll now move, and let me apologize to all those who have been waiting. We really had a lot to do tonight. We had 9 student appeals, and we really, as a board, like to put a lot of time into these things. And we apologize for all y'all having to sit around so long. Having said that, our inspirational moment tonight, Mrs. Porter had someone here, but I'll turn the time over to you.
Mr. Trapp. I wanted to first apologize to our guest that we had. She did have a military engagement that she had to attend at 7:30, so she had to leave. But in her absence, I'm going to state a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., knowing that we just celebrated his life on January 15th. And that is, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Martin Luther King Jr. And now, if you could, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We will now move to item 5.1. May I please have a motion regarding the approval of the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Agostini.
I move to approve the consent agenda for January 16th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Agostini and seconded by Mrs. Nash. Is there any discussion? All right, if that is correct, board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion passes. I am not aware of any public participation tonight. All right, we will move on to item 7, voting on executive session items. Item 7.2, student appeals. May I please have a motion regarding the student appeals?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott?
for student number 1, I move that the student attend Blythewood Academy for the remainder of the school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Dr. Scott and seconded by Mrs. Nash. Is there any discussion? Dr. Scott, is that correct on the screen?
That's correct.
All right, board members, please vote. Vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion passes. May I have a motion regarding student number 2?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott?
for student number 2, I move that the student will attend Blythewood Academy for the remainder of the school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Dr. Scott, seconded by Mrs. Nash. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini?
similar to a couple weeks ago, I'm going to abstain on this vote due to, in my opinion, incomplete information given to the board regarding this incident.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Scott, is that correct on the screen?
That's correct.
All right, board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 1 abstain. The motion passes.
Mr. Chair, that would be 6 yes.
Did I say so? Okay. I'm a proud Spring Valley graduate. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I actually am. But anyway, counting's not my thing, though. All right. May I have a motion regarding student number 3?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott,
I move to deny the appeal for student number 3.
is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Dr. Scott, seconded by Mrs. Nash. Is there any discussion? Is that correct on the screen, Dr. Scott?
That's correct.
All right, board members, please vote. Vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion carries. May I have a motion regarding student number 4?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott,
I move to deny the appeal for student number 4.
is there a second?
Second?
Motion was made by Dr. Scott, seconded by Mrs. Agostini. Is there any questions? Any comments? Is that correct on the screen, Dr. Scott?
That's correct.
All right, board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion carries. May I please have a motion for student number 5?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott,
I move to deny the appeal for student number 5.
is there a second?
Second?
Motion has been made by Dr. Scott, seconded by Mrs. Agostini. Is there any discussion? All right, is that correct on the screen, Dr. Scott?
That's correct.
All right, board members, please vote. Vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion carries. May I have a motion for student number 6?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott,
I move to deny the appeal for student number 6.
is there a second?
Second?
Motion has been made by Dr. Scott, seconded by Mrs. Agostini. Is there any discussion? Is that correct on the screen, Dr. Scott?
That is correct.
Board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion carries. May I please have a motion for student number 7?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott.
I move that student number 7 return back to homeschool on strict probation with a new instructional leader.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Ms. McFadden? All right, motion's made by Dr. Scott, seconded by Mrs. McFadden. Is there any discussion?
Student number 7 return back to homeschool on strict probation with a new instructional leader.
All right, Dr. Scott, is that correct on the screen?
That is correct.
All right, board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion carries. May I please have a motion regarding student number 8?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott.
I move to deny the appeal for student number 8.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Dr. Scott, seconded by Mrs. Nash. Is there any discussion? Is that correct on the screen, Dr. Scott?
That is correct.
All right, board members, please vote. The vote is 6 yes, 1 no. The motion carries. May I please have a motion regarding student number 9?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott.
I move to deny the appeal for student number 9.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Dr. Scott, seconded by Mrs. Nash. Is there any discussion? Dr. Scott, is that correct on the screen?
That is correct.
All right, board members, please vote. The vote is 6 yes, 1 no. The motion carries. May I please have a motion regarding employment recommendations and certified releases?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Washington,
I move that we approve the employment recommendations and certified releases.
is there a second?
Second.
Was that Ms. Agostini? Dr. Scott, okay. All right, motion has been made by Mrs. Washington, seconded by Dr. Scott. Is there any discussion? All right, is that correct on the screen, Ms. Washington? All right, board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion carries. May I please have a motion regarding the personnel matter related to the superintendent contract extension?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Agostini.
I move at this time to not extend the superintendent's contract until the board has conducted an annual evaluation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Agostini, seconded by Mrs. Nash. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Nash.
I would just like to say we definitely are excited to get that evaluation done, and so far we've had such a great working experience with Dr. Moore, so just excited to get the evaluation done.
Thank you, Ms. Nash. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott.
I'd like to say that I'm very excited and still excited to have Dr. Moore on board with us and looking forward to being able to do an evaluation in 1 year to give you an opportunity to really show us what you've been doing and what you continue to do. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you for the services that you've already provided. And I'm looking forward to continually to work with you in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Any other discussion? Well, I would like to add my personal, I have met a few very professional people in my life, and I would have to put Dr. Moore at the top of that list. I've enjoyed working with her the last couple of months, and I look forward to working with her for many years to come. Is there any other discussion? Mrs. Agostini, is the motion correct on the screen?
It is correct.
All right. Board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion carries. May I please have a motion regarding the receipt of legal advice pertaining to an insurance matter?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. McFadden.
I move to accept the administration's recommendation to engage the legal services of Sweeney Wingate and Barrow, PA, to provide the district legal representation for insurance matter.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. McFadden, seconded by Mrs. Nash. Is there any discussion? All right, one thing I should point out is this is 7.6, not 7.5. English is not my thing either. All right. Ms. McFadden, other than the fact that says 7.5, is the motion correct?
The B after and, yeah, just delete that. I don't know if we need the initials PA on there. Or all PA. Yeah, it does need to change 7.6 because that says contractual matters regarding legal services, and this is insurance. So it would be,
Do we need to change some of the language? Was it something you need to, okay, okay. All right, Ms. McFadden, is that all correct now?
yes, it is. That's absolutely correct. Thank you.
Okay. All right, board members, please vote. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The motion carries. We will now move to item 8.1, the 2022-2023 Financial Audit Report. Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, we'd like to call up Ms. Nancy Williams, to our CFO, to introduce our auditor, who will give us a presentation tonight on the 2023 audit.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I stand before you to briefly introduce Mr. Matthew Hodges with Burkett, Burkett, who is here, as Dr. Moore said, to share the results of the 2023 financial audit of Richland School District 2.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Moore, thank you very much for your time this evening. Tonight, I will present the results of our audit. I'll present our required audit communications, review our procurement engagement, present a summary of selected financial information from the annual comprehensive financial report, and finish with any questions or comments that you may have. First, we'll review some information included in our audit report. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States, and for the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation, fair presentation of financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, as well as internal controls over compliance. Management is responsible for compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements, including compliance with applicable requirements of its major federal award programs. Management is also required under U.S. GAAP to evaluate whether there are any conditions or events considered in the aggregate that raise substantial doubt about the school district's ability to continue as a going concern for 12 months beyond the financial statement date. We conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States, the standards applicable to financial audits contained in government auditing standards, as well as the audit requirements of the Uniform Guidance. We are required to be independent of the school district and to meet our other ethical responsibilities in accordance with the relevant ethical requirements relating to our audit. We are required to conclude whether in our judgment there are conditions or events considered in the aggregate that raise substantial doubt about the school district's ability to continue as a going concern for a reasonable period of time. Our responsibilities include obtaining reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement and whether material noncompliance with direct and material compliance requirements to the major federal award programs occurred, whether due to fraud or error, and issue an auditor's report that includes our opinions. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but is not absolute assurance, and therefore it's not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and the uniform guidance will always detect material misstatements or material noncompliance when they exist. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement or material noncompliance resulting from fraud is higher than one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omissions, misrepresentations, or the override of internal control. Misstatements are considered material if there's a substantial likelihood that individually or in the aggregate, they would influence the judgment made by a reasonable user based on the financial statements. In performing our audit, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We identify and assess the risk of material misstatement of the financial statements and the risk of material noncompliance to major federal award programs, whether due to fraud or error, and design and perform audit procedures responsive to those risks. Such procedures include examining on a test basis evidence regarding the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements, as well as evidence regarding the school district's compliance with direct and material compliance requirements. We obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to the audits in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the school district's internal control. So no such opinion is expressed. We evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies used and the reasonableness of significant accounting estimates made by management, as well as evaluate the overall presentation of the financial statements. So we have issued 3 reports as a result of our audit. First, an unmodified opinion in relation to the financial statements, meaning that they present fairly in all material respects the school district's financial position and changes in its financial position for the year ended June 30th, 2023. We did not identify any material weaknesses in internal controls over financial reporting that were considered to be material to the financial statements, and there were no findings on compliance. We issued an unmodified opinion in relation to the school district's compliance with the direct and material compliance requirements for its major federal award programs for the year ended June 30th, 2023, which were the school district, the special education cluster, the ESSER grants, and the magnet school grants. A disagreement with management is a financial accounting, reporting, or auditing matter, whether or not resolved to our satisfaction, that could be significant to the financial statements or the auditor's report. I'm pleased to report that no such disagreements arose during the course of our audit. To our knowledge, there were no consultations with other accountants about auditing or accounting matters, similar to obtaining a second opinion on certain situations. There were no auditing or accounting issues discussed between management and our firm as a condition of our retention as the school district's independent auditors. Management's responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies. The significant accounting policies used by the school district are described in Note 1 to the financial statements. There were no new accounting policies adopted, and the application of existing policies wasn't changed during fiscal year 2023. We did not note any transactions entered into by the school district for which there was a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus, and all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. During fiscal year 2023, the district implemented the guidance in GASB Statement Number 96, Subscription-Based Information Technology Arrangements for Accounting and Reporting on IT Subscriptions. The district determined that the intangible right-of-use subscription assets and liabilities are not material to the financial statements as of June 30th, 2023. There were no significant difficulties encountered in performing our audits, and we received full cooperation from district personnel. The school district's audit was submitted to the South Carolina Department of Education on December 1st, 2023. Under South Carolina Code Section 1135-5340, South Carolina school districts with annual budget expenditures of at least $75 million must have a procurement audit performed every 3 years by an audit firm approved by the State Fiscal Accountability Authority's Division of Procurement Services. the Office of Audit and Certification has provided a list of agreed-upon procedures for South Carolina School District auditors to perform. Practitioners are required to follow these procedures. Findings identified must be included in the report, along with recommendations to bring the district's procurement system into compliance. The agreed-upon procedures engagement for procurement cover the period July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023. The objective is to determine whether for the procedures performed and the results obtained, the school district's procurement procedures complied with the district procurement code for the items selected. As part of our engagement, we received the district's responses to the SFAA's questionnaire for evaluating internal control efficiency and effectiveness of the school district's procurement operations. The agreed-upon procedures engagement required that we perform sampling in the following areas. We selected a 2-month sample of procurement card purchases during the fiscal year. We selected a block sample of 200 numerical purchase orders. We selected 5 disposals and sales of surplus property. We selected a sample of 62 procurement transactions and tested these for compliance with the SFAA standard matrix. We selected 5 procurements for compliance with the SFAA's major construction matrix, and 4 procurements were tested for compliance with the A&E and related professional services matrix. We selected change orders that were related to the applicable construction projects selected for testing. We reviewed copies of all sole source and emergency procurements for the year ended June 30, 2023 to determine that each transaction was adequately explained, properly approved, and accurately reported. We reviewed 100% of unauthorized procurements for the year ended June 30, 2023 to determine if they were properly addressed in accordance with the school district's procurement code. So as a result of our procedures, we identified 4 findings. First, the school district did not have written approval from the Division of Procurement Services that its procurement code was substantially similar to the Consolidated Procurement Code for South Carolina Code of Laws, Section 11355340. We noted that the school district adopted the 2021 Model School District Procurement Code as of July 1, 2023, and as a result, no further action is required. As a result of our procedure relating to reviewing a 2-month sample of procurement card transactions, we identified 3 instances of noncompliance. The first finding is there were multiple procurement card transactions for educational supplies and materials that could have been purchased through state and district contracts, and documentation was not provided to explain the use of an alternative supplier. Our recommendation is that the school district disallow the purchase of educational supplies and materials using a procurement card unless approval has been received from the procurement director. In the corrective action plan, management states it will use state and district contracts as the first option when purchasing educational supplies and materials. Purchases from alternate suppliers will be approved by the procurement director, and this will be implemented in February 2024. Next, we found multiple procurement cards in which departments were listed as the cardholder instead of a current employee, which is not in accordance with the school district's purchasing card manual. We recommend that the school district ensure only current employees are cardholders of procurement cards in accordance with the school district's purchasing card manual. In the corrective action plan, management states that all departmental cards will be removed by June 30th, 2024. Lastly, we found multiple procurement card transactions for recurring charges exceeding $2,500 each. We recommend that the school district use purchase orders to pay for recurring charges, including but not limited to phone and utility payments. In the corrective action plan, management states that a P-card change form will be issued for the transactions that exceed $2,500 in order for the payment to be made. Now we will review selected financial information from the school district's fiscal year 2023 annual comprehensive financial report. First, the fund balance in the general fund increased by $17.1 million during fiscal year 2023. General fund revenues were $315 million, expenditures were $319 million, and net transfers in were $21 million. General fund revenues increased by $7.5 million compared to the prior year. This includes an additional $4.6 million in local property taxes and $2.4 million in additional interest on investments. Millage for both the general fund and debt service fund remained unchanged during the year. Compared to fiscal year 2022, general fund expenditures increased by $14.4 million, which includes increases in salaries and related fringe benefits. The school district's general fund balance was $111.8 million as of June 30th, 2023, which was all considered to be unassigned. The school district's unassigned general fund balance represents 33.6% of fiscal year 2023 general fund budget expenditures. School district policy states as a priority maintaining 2 months' expenses in the general fund balance from 1 year to the next, which equates to 16.7%. South Carolina state law requires school districts to maintain at least 8.33% of 1 month's expenditures as a general reserve. The government-wide statement of net position shows a deficit balance and net position as of June 30th, 2023 of $198.7 million. This reflects an increase of $60 million compared to the prior year deficit. The increase is largely due to an increase in net capital assets during the year, which is reported as capital outlays in the governmental fund financial statements. The reason for the negative balance in net position is the continued effects of the requirement to report the school district's allocated share of the state of South Carolina's unfunded liabilities for pensions and other post-employment benefits, or OPEB, in the school district's government-wide financial statements. The school district is required under generally accepted accounting principles to report a portion of the state's unfunded pension and OPEB liabilities based on the school district's pro rata share of contributions to the plans. As of June 30th, 2023, the school district's portion of the net pension liability was $390.9 million. Its portion of the net OPEB liability was $307.5 million. Once again, these are not liabilities that the school district will need to make a payment for. These are just required accruals. The school district's actual liability to PIBA as of June 30th, 2023 was $5.6 million, and this was for the June 2023 retirement and retiree insurance. That was paid in August of 2023. The school district's net capital assets, which were $817 million as of June 30th, 2023, are up $62.8 million compared to the prior year. This is due to ongoing construction projects from the 2018 bond referendum. The district's net long-term bond obligations of $680.6 million increased by $126.1 million compared to the prior year due to a bond issuance during the year. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding our audits.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges. Board members, are there any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Agostini.
And I'm not sure if this is for our audit firm or if this is for the district, but I'm looking at the procurement engagement and the 3 sightings that materials could have been purchased through the state and district contracts, the use of the procurement cards, and exceeding the recurring cost of $25,000 each. Were those all cited in the IG report as concerns, and then we're still recurring? It's come up again, or are these old ones from the IG report?
So these are the same, and these were reported in last year's audit as well. Because of the timing of the completion of the fiscal year 2022 audit and that not being reported until March of 2023, some of that is continued into the period that we were auditing, which ended June 30th of 2023. So we looked at two months during that time period. And so we did identify that some of these items just hadn't been corrected by June 30th.
Okay, because in one of your comments, you were saying for the auditor found multiple, the transaction, the supply one, that it would be addressed in February 2024. Is that something that we've addressed sooner than 2024 if it was a recurring problem? Was it just, did we address it July 1st of 2023?
That was the response. I believe it has been addressed, but that was the response that we were given, and that was documented in the procurement engagement, was February 2024. But I believe it has been addressed previously.
All right,
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Porter.
So my question is, the samples that were collected, all of them include samples from the previous year and not afterwards?
Just fiscal year 2023.
Okay. And so is 2024 in there at all?
No,
Okay.
no, we'll
that's
have a
what-
separate engagement coming up that'll be July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024, and we'll be reporting on that.
That's what I
That's the
was
one that's due
asking,
December
sorry.
of this year, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to add for the board's knowledge that Ms. Robinson Lee and I meet monthly. We go through all of the items that are purchased on the P card. The actions that were identified have been addressed, and Ms. Robinson Lee's team have already taken the steps to correct these items. These are all from the previous fiscal year. We started a new fiscal year July 1st of 2023.
All right, thank you, Dr. Moore, and thank you, Mr. Hodges.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to item 9.1. The agenda item in this section is regarding the proposal of surplus budget. Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board, as we spoke to you back in October, we said we would come back with a proposal based upon the findings of our audit and the determination of what the surplus would be for our budget. At that time, we brought to your attention that we needed to look at our, next slide please, our preventative maintenance, which we identified at $14.9 million for FY24 and $18.9 million for FY25. Our technology needs for this year is at $12.3 million. Next year, 13.3. For this year, we set a total of 27.2, and we project for next year a total of 32.2. And as you just heard from our auditor, we have a surplus of $17.1 million. I just want to remind the board of additional needs that we are facing in our district. First and foremost, it is competitive salaries for our staff. Right now, we are not competitive with our surrounding districts, and that is a definite challenge for us in retention as well as recruitment. While we just had a very productive job fair, and I say productive meaning we had qualified candidates, so the pool was a strong pool. The number was very, very low. I did find out, though, from one of my colleagues in a surrounding district that our numbers were larger than theirs, but still, it was less than 40 people. And so that just gives you the state of where we're at, and salaries definitely are a large part of that. Of course, we also have expanded services and programs to address the needs of our students. We know that we are also looking at improving working conditions for our educators. We have a task force that's looking into that based upon the research and data that was supplied to us by the state. We also know that we have additional safety needs. As you know, we have our safety monitors and safety programs in place. At the high school level, we have started our pop-ups in the middle school, and they've gone very well. But I know the board's desire is for next year to have middle schools fully staffed, just like we do with our high schools. On top of that, we do have the end of the ESSER funding, and those dollars are mainly spent on personnel. And those would include our floaters, our attendance clerks, our additional teacher assistants that are in classrooms. And so that funding cliff, as it's been coined in the press, is definitely something that we have to take in consideration. And of course, there's many other things that will pop up, of course, that we have to address. Inflation is not only affecting our operations department, but it's also impacting curriculum and instruction, as well as everything else in our district. So our proposal included what the board wanted, which was the mid-year bonus proposal, of which I know our employees were very grateful for, and we thank you for that. That deducted $3.8 million from that $17.1 million. And what that did is leave us with $13.3 million. So how do we spend that $13.3 million? Taking in consideration the needs to balance our preventive maintenance with our technology, but also our personnel. here is my proposal and recommendation to the board. We've already spent the $3.8 million on the mid-year bonus. I'm proposing that we do a longevity bonus. This is something I've heard repeatedly from our employees, especially our employees that have been with us 10 or more years. And while they fully understand the need to recruit new teachers in and are grateful that we do that with the signing bonus, they would also like to be recognized. And so the longevity bonus would cost $5.2 million, which still leaves us some money left for technology needs and preventive maintenance, which would bring us up to the grand total of 17.1. I will say this, that is not sufficient to cover the needs that we have, and we will have to have some conversations around looking at some other funding opportunities. And now we will entertain any questions.
Board members, are there any questions for Dr. Moore?
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Porter?
My question is for the longevity bonus. Would that be in conclusion with a signing contract or just given? So I know that it's been part of our discussions, but has that been a part of your discussions as well?
We have looked at that option, but we need to know if that's what the board would like. I will ask Dr. Franklin to elaborate if there's any additional information that he has at this point in time. Foster, I'm sorry, I'm looking at you, Franklin. Dr. Foster.
I think our only concern with that is just making sure that we go ahead and get that information out quickly, because as you are aware, we've already had our first round of employees that have indicated that they will be leaving for various reasons, retirement, other personal reasons, relocations. So we want to make sure that if that's going to be part of the longevity bonus, that we go ahead and let employees know that in order to qualify for that, particularly our certified staff members, that it would be, in concert of them signing their contract to be employed with us for the upcoming year. Because some districts do do that. One of our, Richland 1 makes that they do a longevity bonus, and it is part of their signing their contract to work with us for the upcoming year. So,
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini?
stay, Mr.
Oh, Dr. Scott, I'm sorry. I knew it was that way.
Well, one question, and then I have a comment. What year do we go up for teachers on the teacher salary scale? What year do we stop?
so our current salary schedule has 45 steps. With we start banding at step 25, 28. Yeah, we start having the steps are in a band from 25 to 45. So
Explain that.
So we have steps 1, and I'm trying to make sure I have this correct. We have steps 0 through 25.
Yes.
And then once we get to 25, then it goes 20 to 20. Once we get to 25 to 20, 25 to 30, 30 to 35, 35 to 40, and 40 to 45.
So actually, we pay teachers up to year 45, is that correct?
That is current. Yes, currently we do pay teachers up to step 45.
So did we change that? Because I thought before it was less. Is that?
That's the current practice that's been in place since I've been here.
Do we have that out on the website when someone pulls up our teacher salary scale? Does it say it goes up to 45? Because I didn't see that.
So yes, our teacher salary schedule does have that up to 45, but I do want to just caution you that although we go up to step 45, we're still not competitive.
Right.
A district that may go up to step 33, still our 45, they're paying more at step 33.
Oh, absolutely. That's
So,
why I wanted to see it.
Our 45 is not competitive. It is very incentivizing to teachers, but if it's not going to give them the pay increase as it would somebody in
Absolutely.
another district that's at step 33, then it's not really helping us meet the goals. Our current teacher salary scale, as we've talked about before, we are not competitive. We have one sale that's very competitive for which is our beginning year teachers. We pay them at the highest level, but at the other levels, we are not competitive at all with any of our very few of our surrounding districts.
And the band means that the teacher would not get a raise or would not move financially for the 3 years that they're in that band.
Right.
The 5 years.
And I guess that was my concern, that they're really not getting that pay scale. That's why I wanted him to define band, because band is not giving the teachers the increase that they deserve.
That's
and
correct.
want. Yes.
In those bands, you would not get an increase of
Right.
like 25 to 30. You would not get an increase for those
Right.
5 years until you got to step 31.
Exactly. So I would love us to go back and revisit that. And I know the budget season will be coming up very, very soon. So I want to give you guys, Dr. Moore and Ms. Williams, I want to give you guys a heads up that I will be a champion for our elementary secretaries. They are the bookkeeper and the secretary, the principal's secretary and the principal's bookkeeper, which is extremely too much work, and it's 2 jobs in one. So I would love to see us revamp that pay scale for elementary principals / bookkeeper. And if we can't do that, then maybe we need to consider having the principal secretary and then a bookkeeper. But if we cannot do that, I am going to truly be a champion for elementary principal secretaries. So I hope my colleagues can get on board with me on that, because this next school year, I want to see a nice increase for our elementary principal secretary / bookkeeper. 2 jobs, 1 salary. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Any other questions? Ms. Agostini?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wanting to go back to the preventative maintenance and technology needs. I know that we talked about this before, but refresh my memory on how the needs for fiscal year 24 needs and fiscal year 25 needs were determined.
Ms. Agostini, those are based upon our current, for example, technology based upon our current cost and rises in cost for all of our licenses, for replacement and updating of equipment, as well as, what am I forgetting? Recurring subscriptions. Come to the mic, please. Mr. Carter, thank you.
Good evening. Yeah, I have a consolidated list here for a summary for you. It's broken down in just a few high-level expenses, such as Windows desktop computers, Windows laptop computers. We have approximately 13,000 of those in our fleet, and our goal is to reach a 5-year life cycle for those computers. And in order to achieve that, we just strive to replace approximately 20% of the fleet on an annual basis based on current costs to replace approximately, 20% of.
I was going to say, I don't want to interrupt, but that's exactly what I was looking for. That's good enough, the 20% of the fleet and the replacement fee. That's what and that's what I'm wondering too for the maintenance systems. Is this itemized from school, or is this just an estimate?
It is itemized.
We've identified schools that have the need, so based upon the schools, that's how we've come up with the number.
So this is our current needs based on mechanical systems, roofs, floorings, all those things, as well as, for example, we have tracks that have not been replaced that are timed. Those are very expensive, as you know, with Spring Valley and R&E we did, and so it's time for those schools. Those are upwards of $1.5 million. So, but our new facility study is going to help us to identify the more needs. But yes, ma'am.
Okay, so yeah, you have a list. All right, thank you. And then my question next would be, based upon what's being asked for in the superintendent's proposal, the technology and the preventative maintenance are significantly less being asked for from the general fund balance versus what the 2 gentlemen have just said. So where do we make up the difference?
We're going to have to look at an 8%.
Okay, so we've just been told that we have $111 million. Is that correct, in our general fund balance? Why would we not use more money to reduce the 4%, I mean, the 8% to a 4%? Why would we not utilize this money in?
I think we've considered that option, but we need to be a little bit more strategic about the timing of when we start spending down our fund balance. With this ESSER cliff approaching, there will be some things that we know we may have to go into fund balance for, as well as the need to go into fund balance to finish the referendum projects, because we don't want to ask for debt again, to borrow again for something that we've already borrowed for. So it's more of a timing issue.
So what we're anticipating with this additional needs is that we're going to have to use the general fund balance to fund the additional needs that we've just discussed this evening.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. As far as preventative maintenance and technology, the additional.
No. The competitive salaries for certified and classified. I'm trying to figure out.
No, ma'am. We would not want to fund recurring needs out of non-recurring dollars.
I'm just trying to figure out, we still have all this money. What are you saying it's going to be used for? I know that we don't want to spend it down, but it is excessive what we have right now.
Yeah. But once we do this 17, it'll take us back to the 94. And then going beyond this year, we know into next year, 25 up into 26, we will need some additional funding, somewhere 12, 13, 15 million dollars, depending upon inflation, to finish the referendum projects. So that's going to get us down to around the $80 million mark. And so we just want to be strategic about the timing of utilizing fund balance.
And so we're going to have to dip into our fund balance to finish off our bond projects.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then my last question, or my concern is this longevity bonus. We talked about a longevity bonus, almost a year ago, I guess. This is something hard for me to support. I want to give teachers more money, but just saying a longevity bonus, I'd like more details. And what I would like, and I'm speaking for myself, is the commitment from teachers. It would be like a signing bonus. And I'm hesitant to, support this proposal tonight because I specifically would like more details on the longevity bonus before we go ahead and offer it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Porter? Oh, sorry.
So I know that we do have the upcoming budget season. Are we going to include, so that we're not having to wait for an audit and wait for a surplus, this bonus structure? I thought that was something that we had discussed last year about making sure that we include that into our actual budget so that we already have the money and funds allocated for that. Is that the plan for this upcoming year?
Related to the longevity bonus?
Yes.
I mean, it's something that we can build into the list of needs, and if that's something that you want to support, we certainly can put those numbers on that very long list of other items that we'll be requesting.
And then the other thing that I had a question about was related to the ESSER funding. You said the cliff is going to include salaries, so we have positions that we need to fill. Do you have a number that actually tells us how much that's going to be?
Not right in front of me, not right now, but I can get that information to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. McFadden?
So at the end of the month, I'm going back to Washington to the NSBA Advocacy Institute, and they have submitted a letter of what they're calling homework for myself and the district to do that addresses this ESSER cliff. And they're asking what were we using the ESSER funds for? How is it going to impede our IDEA Part A and B? What is going to happen to those programs that we have, and where are we going to get the money from? Those kind of things. I've already submitted that to Dr. Moore, who's dispersed it to whomever. So those are the questions that will be addressed whenever I go to Washington to see if they can start their process of getting more funding, because we are going to definitely need that. However, I did also ask for job descriptions with time served and salaries, going back to what our HR director was talking about. I've asked for a list of the organizational chart with all of the time that someone has been in that position and how much they're getting paid. Because if they've been here for 33 years and they're still getting paid the rate of someone down the street of 14, 15 years, I would like to see that. And I know that Dr. Moore is doing a salaries adjustment and the positions that she's adjusting. So we want to have something to start at the beginning to know where we are now and what's going to happen after she gets done in a year or so. And Ms. Tanedra has already started that process and getting that done. So some of those things that they're talking about here, we're trying to get it done. Again, I think it's just a matter of trying to move it along to where we can get that information quicker. But as far as the ESSER funds are, as soon as I get that back, I'll have to share it with you guys before I leave. But some of those questions hopefully will be addressed so that we can actually do something else about it.
Is there any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Porter?
I just wanted to point out that on the State Department's website, when it lists all of the different schools and their salary schedules, that while in some places our base pay for bachelor's and bachelor's plus 18 looks okay, when it comes to our master's and up, that's when we start to fall behind many of the other districts. So that step pay raise, and mostly anybody who's worked in the district 10 years or more is getting that pay raise. And so the fact that that slows down significantly, and that we talked about, I believe it was set, there was a large percent of our teachers being only 7 years experience or under, and we want to keep our veterans and more experienced educators in the district. That's something to look at for recruitment and retainment.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, yes, one
Ms.
more question.
Washington.
So there was a mention of the bond, and that we will need to, we're running out of money? Is that what you're saying with the bond? Can you explain that part? Because it went pretty fast for me, and I wanted to.
Due to inflation and supply chain issues, the amount needed to complete the bond projects is greater than the initial estimate. So yes, there will be the need for additional funds to complete those projects as promised to the taxpayers.
Do we know when we're getting another update on the bond projects?
I think next meeting is, I'm assuming it's on the next, oh, sorry. I'm assuming it's on the next agenda meeting, Ms. Washington.
No, it's not.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a problem. But to clarify, to expand upon, it's the inflation, and so those budget updates as part of other updates in previous meetings, but I'll be sure to give a much more clear picture at this meeting and focus on the budget part. Any questions you have about that?
And so when we do this facility study, are we going to make sure that we take projections 10 years down the road, so that when we say we have to go back before taxpayers and ask for money, that we are being considerate of that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, our initial, we had a 5% inflation built into our 2018 bond, and the 40% over a 2-year period just really killed us. For example, our projects, Bethel Hanbury was $5 million under, Blythewood High was $2 million under, Forest Lake was $1 million under. These were all projects that contracts were signed pre-COVID, and then the post-COVID projects and during those times have skyrocketed the price, and that's where we're at today.
And that's why we're going to have to ask for more. That's why administration is requesting more money for the preventive maintenance, because of
No,
inflation?
that has nothing. No, ma'am, that has nothing to do with that. That's two separate issues. The preventative, the bond didn't. The needs that came out of the 2018, before the 2008 bond, our initial needs assessment was roughly $800 to $900 million. We cut that all the way down for a bond project of $468 million. So we've had a lot of needs that continue to reoccur. And so going back, it was like, I think $758 million is where we ended up. And then we went back and presented a $468 million package that the board approved, and then the voters ended up approving. And then the needs have just continue because the HVAC systems, the roofs, the flooring, those type of things.
Right. No, I'm not saying the preventive maintenance is coming from the bond. I'm saying, is it because of the increased cost in materials that we're seeing that we're requesting more money for? Because I'm trying to wrap my head around that if every year, let's say we spend $9 million on preventative maintenance things, did we decrease that amount because of the bond, because we've got all these projects going on, or did we keep that steady? Like, I'm thinking, give me an example of preventive maintenance, just one thing.
Floors, painting, roofs.
And so over a period of 10 years, we didn't say, okay, let's make sure we include X school or X number of schools this year in our budget for preventative maintenance.
We have that, but we traditionally need, and this is based off of every standard, you're supposed to put 3 to 5% back into your facilities based on your total asset value. You saw our assets is about $800-something million. So we have underfunded our facilities. We've done about $3 to $5 million as long as I've been in this role. And so we haven't spent the 20 to 30 to 40 yearly on yearly maintenance. And so the bond referendum caught us up, but we didn't, it was just getting the projects done that were identified in 2018. So that was 4 years out. And so, I mean, the needs have never changed. The inflation has hurt worse because our inflation built in was 5%. And so the 40% now has caused it to go up higher. But the needs are still out. I mean, the sheets that Tommy and I have are right now looking 10 years out of what we need. And it's traditionally, it goes up every year based on inflation and based on, in 5 years, we're going to need to redo this. We have a plan for every year. There's a certain number of schools that we repaint, certain number of schools we do HVAC, certain number of schools we floor, and that's anywhere from $3 to $5 million a year just on that.
So every year, we are expecting preventive maintenance out of our surplus, or are we going to prepare for those costs? Because you said we were only spending 20%. I mean, we budget 20%, but we were not spending all of that because of all the bond things.
Well, it's a and I'll help with the finance part, but
I mean,
in
I'm not
terms
trying
of,
to.
no,
I'm just trying to understand
those great
why
questions.
every year we're going to have to keep asking for more money for preventative maintenance. Why do we not have? If you're saying we spend 20% of the budget of that, why is that amount not set aside during the budget season?
Well, I guess the answer, the main question is general fund budget is 90% of salaries and benefits. And so you've got 10% left, which utilities alone are, and all those. So really our discretionary spending is very little from the general fund. And so then we use other revenue sources, which the state allows us 2 ways to use capital funds. That's 8%, borrowing 8%, or a bond referendum. And those are the only ways that we currently have. Aiken County, other districts that have a very much more affluent tax base, meaning that they have, Charleston's millage rate is like 70. They bring in so much money that they're able to not have to do bond referendums. Aiken County has a 1% sales tax that we don't have. So unfortunately, we have 2 ways to do capital spending. And unless the board or Richland County would like to raise our millage rate high, which I don't think anybody wants to do, unfortunately, we're kind of have to use the money that we have allocated. Did I answer that right, Nancy? Okay. Is there anything else, Ms. Washington? All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ms. Nash.
I just had one question. So when you guys are saying that you're preparing for inflation, what percentage are you looking at now in forecasting?
Right now, we're looking at the current inflation rate. It's gone down, but it doesn't mean the prices have gone down.
Right, because I remember you guys talking about HVACs, and I was reading something the other day talking about HVACs are going up 20% starting October because of an EPA regulation is changing certain units that have certain things. So even including in that, knowing that those things are coming, even though, like you said, inflation may be down, but the cost of those items are going to be more just simply because the changes, and that's the same thing with, certain computers and other things. And so do you guys allot for that as well?
We do the best we can. It's just like forecasting that you guys do for the general fund. We work with all the trends, get information from local people and from national people to keep the trend data. We work closely together at anything. So we forecast the best we can. Just like I said, we try to put in a 5%, but then we change as needed. And
Okay.
so, we try our very best to work with our finance team to be prepared for what that may be, and that's what we do right now. You're welcome.
Before you sit down, I just want to ask a question that may not necessarily apply, but I think it may answer some other questions. I'm assuming when it comes to preventive maintenance and things like that, repairs, every building we have that has age on it is going to take X amount of dollars a year to be maintained, to be upgraded and things like that. Our new buildings will not need that for a while. Is that, so I'm going to assume, since we built a lot of new facilities in the last few years, that as we roll along, that our maintenance and repair costs are going to increase simply because as we age, as our new buildings start to age, they will catch up with the old buildings on needing so much a year to keep them up to speed. Is that something we can expect in the future, that
Yes, sir.
the new buildings will cause our costs to go up because they'll one day not be new?
That's a great question, and we're doing more of it's called a total cost of ownership analysis now, knowing that what we spend over the total cost of a building, so we can look at your upfront costs are going to be actually the most minimal by the time you get there. But for example, we started implementing an all new building. It's called a product that's a non-wax, non-buff floor that has a longer lifespan. This is a newer technology, newer product that really expands the life of the floor. So it's helped in our maintenance cost. Our HVAC systems are more efficient, better running than they used to be. So yes, to answer your question, some of the new buildings, there's also some of the things we're putting into our buildings are extending the life of the buildings and making sure our costs are lower. So yes, sir, that's a good question.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini.
I have a couple more questions. Piggybacking on what Mrs. Washington was asking, do we have an estimate for how much over our bond referendum is going to cost?
Right now, off the top of my head, I have to give you that answer. I don't know off the top of my head. I have to give you that answer.
Can we do a plus or minus $5 million, or not even that?
Is it 8? Or was it 8? I think it was 12 right now. Yes, ma'am.
So approximately 12 million. Okay, and then on this list for technology needs and preventative maintenance, I'm wondering why those numbers were picked. Are those immediate needs and items where we need money, like you got a priority list and you know what you're going to do and what needs to happen with this money tomorrow?
Very similar to the yearly 8% that we used to, we hadn't done an 8% since 2018, but it's yes, ma'am. So to answer your question, yes, we know exactly what we're going to spend the money on. We have a list. We know everything we're going to spend, the 4.5 as well as Tommy on the 3.6.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, board members?
I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Okay, Ms. McFadden.
So one good thing about all this is that in October 2023, Governor McMaster, along with our State Superintendent Ellen Weaver, and their team created a South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office. They created a dashboard so that we can see, our departments now have to report all this information online so that not only do board members know, but we can tweak it to what we want to see or what we want to know. The public, they have access to it as well. They may not get the real intricate details of what, we may get on our end in executive session sometimes, however that may go, but there is a dashboard for the public that you can go and look and see itemized, broken down in compared districts. It shows academic achievements, all kind of things like where we're spending our money, income, those kind of things. Just an FYI for those who did not know.
All right, board members, any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Dr. Bohr.
Just for clarification, because while the board is very familiar with the budget process, I know that some of the people who are watching this may not fully understand. General revenue is designed to support the operations of the district. 85 to 90% of that budget is spent on salaries. The remaining part of that has to cover those utilities, as Mr. Anderson said, that we have to pay, those bills that are up front that we pay every month. But in addition to that, it also covers curriculum and instruction instructional materials that we may need. The way the general fund operates and the way the funding system is set up in South Carolina, preventative maintenance and technology was never a part of that process. It was always to be funded out of the 8% bond. And so if you look at any of the budgets of all of our surrounding districts, you will see that that is how districts are maintaining their facilities, is through the 8%. What has happened over the last several years is we have delayed. So when you look at our technology, instead of doing the refresh at 5 years, as Mr. Carter has said, we pushed it off another year so that we would have funding to do salary increases, signing bonuses, increase pay for bus drivers, buy curriculum that we need in our schools. Those are the challenging decisions that the board makes every year when we present the budget. So I just want the public to understand that, is that this is the way the system is designed to work, and that is why we are talking about the 8% bond. It is for preventive maintenance and technology. But even with the 8%, we may not have enough money to cover everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. All right, board members, may I please have a motion regarding the proposed surplus budget?
Mr. Chair,
Is that Ms. Porter?
yes.
Ms. Porter.
I move to accept the 2024 surplus budget as proposed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Porter, seconded by Dr. Scott. Is there any discussion?
A couple of concerns. First of all, what I'm looking at, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Agassi.
Sorry, I'm getting tired. But as I'm reading this, it shows a $17.1 million proposal from the superintendent. It's my understanding that we've already approved at our last meeting the $3.8 million. So
It's 13.3.
So it should be specified. My other concern is that at this point in time, I'm happy to support the technology needs and the preventative maintenance, but I would like a further discussion. And I do want to give a bonus. Please don't misunderstand me. But a better understanding of the longevity bonus, who's going to get what and when. I know we had something proposed to us last year, but is that in fact what we're going to do? Because I would like to see us get something in return, like we have the signing bonuses for the new teachers, those that plan to come back. I would love to see those that commit to come back into Richland too get that bonus. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Washington.
Yes, I guess my question is, how are we including the classified, because they don't sign contracts, do they? So how are we going to make sure, how are they given 11 longevity bonus? Can somebody from classified staff, they don't sign contracts?
That is correct. They do not sign contracts, and it would be just on their word that they're going to be returning back to us, because they are at-will employees, and so they can, end employment at any time. And I think most of the ones that I've been seeing is this just been the longevity bonuses, as far as with the contractual agreement is only with the certified staff. But we can explore what other districts are doing for their classified staff in that with longevity.
So the number that you gave is just for certified staff, but the number that we just approved and distributed, that was certified and classified for
And
the
this is for
mid-year.
certified and classified as well.
Okay.
And we can send to the board, we've discussed different bands and different amounts for the longevity, so we can get that to the board. But we wanted to know, was this what the board wanted?
All right, is there any further questions? Ms. Porter, is your motion correct on the screen?
Yes.
All right, well, board members, please vote. The vote is 5 yes, 2 no. The motion carries. Next on the agenda is item 9.2. The agenda item in this section is regarding the congratulatory letter to newly elected public officials and officers. May I please have a motion regarding the congratulatory letter to newly elected public officials and officers?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Washington.
I move to direct the board chair to send congratulatory letters to newly elected public officials who represent Richland School District 2 on behalf of the board.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Mrs. Washington, seconded by Dr. Scott. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Mrs. Nash.
I actually was shocked this was on here because a couple of weeks ago, there was a question of legislative committee sending out letters or Christmas cards to everyone handwritten, and it wasn't a public thing. And that was decided that was not going to be done with everyone that was either on this list or not on this list. But I have a bigger issue with the fact that we're a nonpartisan board and we haven't done this for other people. And I don't think it's a great idea for us to do it for other people. And if you talk to other districts, one of the reasons they don't do it is because of the very thing that we're going to sign tonight that says avoid conflicts of interest and to refrain from using my board position for personal or partisan gain. Now, I don't think that's what my colleagues are doing. I do think that becomes a problem in the appearance of what it looks like, whether we do it for anybody. I think that if we do what we've normally done, which is say it in our board comments, or even have our legislative committee send something out, is more appropriate, but I will be voting no because I don't think this is a great idea at all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Scott.
thank you for allowing me to speak. And we are a nonpartisan board, and I hope that my colleagues remember that when they make posts that are partisan. So with that, when we're talking about sending out these letters, it doesn't matter what party you belong to. If you were newly elected and you serve Richland 2 community, we want you to be a part and want you to know that we want to build a relationship with you. Mrs. McFadden is the legislative contact. And in order to do that, we have to let our legislators know that we want to build a partnership with them. Now, this is something new that we have done, that we're doing, and I think it's a great opportunity to build those relationships. So whether you're Republican or whether you're Democrat or independent, if you were newly elected, we want to say congratulations to you. We want to send that, extend the olive branch to you to let you know that we want to build a relationship with you. So I will be in favor of supporting this.
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Porter.
That's Ms.
Oh, Mrs. McFadden, I'm sorry.
Dr. Scott, I appreciate that. However, when the legislative committee decided that we wanted to send out Christmas cards to all of the delegations, or to the most of them, the delegation, Richland County, all those who represent in that list that we went through when you were on the phone, this board voted against it. However, what I was provided in my board docs was that we would only be sending this to Tamika Isaac Devine, Jessica Mackey, and Derek Pugh. So whenever this came to us on our board docs, those are the only 3 people, and that is very partisan because all 3 of them are Black African-American Democrats. I have nothing against them at all. I have somewhat of a relationship with each of these people. I know who they are, we talk. However, we also had Sloan Griffin, Andrea Fripp, and Donald Brock, who are in our district that were recently elected. And when I sent you an email about this, about how come their names weren't included, and you said their names would be included. However, when we got this presentation, it was not there. My concern is that I was surprised as well because this is very political and partisan. You are running for District 22 seat. So for you to send out, as a board, to send out this to the newly elected Tamika Isaac Devine for her seat is kind of getting in the waters of being partisan. And I don't want to start that battle because then we would have to keep that up. And it is election season. These are important seats, but I think that we should do like we normally do in our board comments and congratulate whomever you choose. And so this being on the agenda,
is very controversial because we would have to take a vote on whether or not we would support. It looks like we are supporting one group over another. We are nonpartisan, so this should never even been on our agenda. Ms. McFadden,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Chairman.
please let me respond.
Well, before we do that, I would like to just mention one thing. We really should avoid communicating directly with each other in the meetings. Having said that, I appreciate the fact you'd like to, if you would like to say something.
Yes, I do want to clarify something with Mrs. McFadden. First of all, this was not my idea. I didn't submit this. I had nothing to do with this. So let's be clear on that. And my intent to run for District 22 has nothing to do with this. So let's not bring in my current campaign election with what I do and how I serve here. Because number one, you were incorrect. I did not submit this. And most definitely, I would have not, because I'm more professional than that. And I know better than to make a post and to include names. So first of all, you were wrong. This had nothing to do with me. And when I saw this, I immediately reached out to Dr. Moore, as well as you and the entire board, and said, if we're going to send a letter, we don't just send to certain people, we send to everyone that's a part of Richland too. So for clarification, please, before you accuse me of anything, please have your facts correct, because I'm more professional than that, and this is not something that I would do. Thank you. Duly noted.
Thank you, Dr. Scott.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Everybody hold on just a second. I would like to exercise my opportunity to speak. And I'll just say this. I will not be supporting this, not because I think it's a good idea or a bad idea. I would like to, well, quite simply, I received an email from someone indicating the word sincere was used in it. And I don't believe that we should have a policy that directs us to do things such as this. There's plenty for the board to do, and I don't see the point in making another policy. I would encourage everyone to send personal emails, phone calls, and things like that. That's what I did, and I would encourage people to do that, because that is personal. That is never going to be seen as insincere. When a group sits here, and quite frankly, this was a little heated a moment ago, I just don't think this is the most effective way to relay any feelings we have to someone, to congratulate them. So.
Mr.
Chair,
Chair,
I'd
I'd
like
like
to
Okay,
call for the
Mrs. Washington,
I have not had the opportunity to speak yet.
is it, well,
Well, we have to have a vote on the call for
we
the
have to have,
vote. It needs to be seconded.
does someone want to second the call for a vote?
Second.
All right. A motion has been made by Mrs. Washington, seconded by Mrs. Nash, to call for a vote. Does that take 5 of 7?
Yes, it has to be
Okay.
two-thirds.
All right. Are we going to, can we get that on the screen? But, Mr. Nidra, what we need up there is a motion call to vote is all it needs to say, and that was made by Mrs. Washington, seconded by Mrs. Nash. All right, board members, please vote. Do what? 3 yes, 4 no, the motion fails. if Mrs. Agostini, you had asked for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to ask Mrs. Washington to just repeat the motion for me, please, because I did not hear names mentioned in her motion. So if you would repeat that, I would just want to make sure I heard you clearly.
I said I move to direct the board chair to send a congratulatory letter to newly elected public officials that represent Richland School District 2.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Washington.
If there's no further discussion, if we could have that on the board, we will vote on that. Ms. Washington, does that look correct? Was that, no, it was seconded by Dr. Scott, I believe. Is that correct? Okay, is that everything up there correct, Mrs. Washington? All right, board members, please vote. The vote is 3 yes, 4 no. The motion fails. Moving on to section 10, item 10.1, Safety and Security Committee update. The agenda item in this section is regarding the Safety and Security Committee update. The report will be given by Ms. Angela Nash, chair of the committee. Mrs. Nash.
Okay, so we are off and running for safety and security this year. We have some really amazing people that are on the board, and I'll get to those as well. But we're just entitling this Safety and Synergy, charting a course for school safety and excellence. And one of the reasons I chose the word synergy, because what we're really trying to do in this school year is really involve our community and our parents, and just really give them the tools to get involved so we can stop a lot of the things that are happening inside of our school before they ever get to our schools. So next slide, please. Okay, so who's on our committee? Having the right stakeholders in the conversation is important. So we have Ms. Deneen Rivers Green, Mr. McGee Moody as our parent representatives. Our student representatives are Michaela Spencer, Tatiana Spencer, Jordan Benjamin, and Christopher Woodward. All of those were chosen with the help of our administration. Let's see here, our principal representatives are Mark Sims and Matt Sherman. Originally, we had thought that we would allow the district administration to decide, which principals come and when they could come. And so the board wanted to do something else, so we have added them, Mr. Mark Sims and Mr. Matt Sherman, as a part of regular attendees to our representatives. Our CSD representatives are Lieutenant Rhodes, and then sometimes we have other guest RCSD representatives, which we are always happy to see. Our Richland 2 representatives are Mr. William EPS Teacher of the Year, and then executive team members attend as well to provide insight and feedback, to which we are always grateful. Our Richland 2 board members are myself, Dr. Monica Elkins-Scott, and Ms. LaShonda McFadden. Next slide. So what is our mission? So to pursue the unwavering safety and well-being of every student, staff member, and visitor by proactively enhancing comprehensive safety measures and fostering collaboration with community stakeholders, we commit to creating and sustaining a secure and nurturing educational environment for all. Next slide, please. So the areas that we're covering, we had some lengthy conversations with our committee as well as our superintendent. And so some of these are going to be ongoing because they're ongoing needs as the world changes literally every day. So building safety, our special needs community, which is one that I'm really excited that we are doing, look at ways that we can better serve in the ways of safety, our special needs community. Not that nobody's doing a great job, but we're always looking for ways to improve and again, get our community involved and parents involved. Cyber safety, there has been a big issue with cyber safety over the last few years, and so that is something that we really want to inform parents about, but we also want to be informed about here at the district and continue to look for ways to provide resources to parents, as well as in our school district, looking for ways to combat a lot of the cyber safety issues that we're dealing with, such as cyberbullying, which was a huge topic that we had as well. Mental health, that is a recurring conversation that we have, and a lot of those things take place outside of our school, and then they enter inside of our school, but then we also have some students that continuously discuss what I think is very important, the silent sufferers, those who are really great students who may be experiencing bullying or maybe experiencing just feeling overwhelmed. And so we want to really look to cover that area as well. So building a stronger synergy with our parents and community to assist with making our schools safer. That's a big star because I think that we have to have buy-in from our parents. We have to have buy-in from our community and the guardians of our students. Next slide, please. So our committee 2023-2024 goals, one of the big ones we've talked about, and I think we even talked about it, well, I know we did, we talked about it last season, last school year, was middle school safety detector expansion. And we'll get more information on that as we work with our administration. And then the next one is the HEART, host a student-led forum on bullying and mental health. And our student representatives were really excited about this, and we've kind of put that in their hands with the help of Mr. Matt Sherman and also Mr. Mark Sims to be leading the charge on that. And then increase our special needs awareness. At our last meeting, we had Ms. Katina Davis, who was so awesome to come and speak. Thank you again. It was very insightful, but we were also looking for ways to provide more parent use for our special needs community and making resources readily available for those parents online on our website. Visit safe schools. This is something that Dr. Scott has brought up previously, and so we talked about it last year, but we really need to check this off our action item list, and so this is on our 2023-2024 goals list. We will be coming to the board in the next few meetings to discuss like what that would look like for us as the 3 board members to go and do. Next up is host a spring parent university. Sorry about that. A spring parent university. We're working in collaboration with several of our community members. For example, the gun safety. We're looking at that. We're looking at cybersecurity. We're looking at early birds. We're looking at trafficking and building better communities to be involved in that, to provide some necessary training that parents may not know how to approach these subjects with their students, and we're going to provide them a parent university so that they will be able to do that and parents can participate. And again, creating that synergy and letting parents know that we want them to be involved in what we're doing. Next slide. So our goals for the 2023-2024 school year also, and these are just some of the things that we really want to just tackle, and this will be an ongoing thing, but we want to present to the board every quarter our financial updates, our events, and our recommendations to the board. And then next, cyber safety and online bullying awareness. So community classes and messaging to students about cyber safety, more of that. I don't know if we can ever have enough of it. Creating synergy with parents and community. Again, this is something I really feel passionate about, and I think as well as the board, that's been a lot of the conversation that we've had. So working with parents to mitigate off-campus concerns that often end up on our school grounds. Next slide. And that is all. Thank you all. And if you all have any questions or comments at this time, we will welcome those.
Thank you, Mrs. Nash. Does anybody have a question or comment I'd like to make?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Agostini?
I have a couple of questions. First of all, please share with me what type of committee this is. Is this we've had confusion about the different types of committees. Is this an ad hoc, a special committee, or how is this committee operating?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know it's on the list. I mean, I've seen it on the list, and I don't
It is a
remember what it's
standing-
listed as. Is it standing? Okay.
I'm sorry? What was the answer?
I think it's a standing committee.
We voted on it when you were chair, that it was a standing committee.
Well, a standing committee doesn't generally involve people from the community. So it was an ad hoc special committee when it was put together.
Okay.
So, and that's, part of my question. That was an ad hoc special committee, and it was made clear when the legislative committee was put together that the board chair, through board policy, was the person to develop the committee members. And I see that there's a significant change in committee members that the board wasn't notified of. And I want to just talk a little bit about that. Mark Claxton, our head of safety, he's no longer on the committee?
If you could look at the slide where it said, "and administration as needed," Mr. Claxton has been a part of our committee, but he has also had people that have subbed in from his team on the days that he has not been able to be there. That's why it says administration. Administration as a whole is involved. And so at every meeting, there is someone from Mark Claxton's team or Mark Claxton himself that is involved.
Thank you. I would love to see his name as part of a standing person on the committee, but thank you for your answer on that. When we were developing this committee, I'm really excited to see that we have high school principals included. I had received a lot of resistance when I had suggested last year that we have both a high school and a middle school principal or administrator on this committee, from the standpoint that a lot of the things that would be implemented, for example, metal detectors, would be impacting both of those schools more, so that we would have that. What is the change of mind of adding the high school principals to this committee?
Well, I'll tell you, Ms. Agostini, it was not my position to take over where administration was. When we started this committee, I spoke to administration about inviting with principals that they felt needed to be there at the times they needed to be there. Because our principals have such rigorous schedules, I did not want to commit them to a meeting when we could have them circle out and not be a same person every time when they also have other commitments. But due to your consistent request that we do that, and I spoke with Dr. Moore and so did Dr. Scott, we included that in there, and they found principals who were willing to be at every meeting. But I wanted more of an approach of the principals who were able to come to be a part of this, so that all of them had an opportunity, not just two.
Yeah, and I appreciate your answer and your emails that you sent to me. It was, the sheriff's recommendation, and that wasn't who was recommended. So I thank you for that. And then my last question would be
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Yes, Mrs.
Point of order. Stay germane to the topic, and we could discuss that, but we need to direct all of the questions to the chairman and on the topic, not of your concerns about emails that were sent back and forth, because we could be here all night about the truth.
Thank you. And my final question, we, talked a lot last year about having a parent town hall, which did not happen. Is there any talk about having a parent town hall to hear from the parents in the community what their concerns are?
Ms. Agostini, as last year we had our Stay Safe for the Summer Forum, we had lots of parents show up, and they provided their information, and they also provided how they felt about things. They spoke about bullying, and they also got to hear from people. But as of right now, we're going to focus on having the parents come to Parent University, because that's what the committee asked for. And so we have the committee because it is for the community. And to be quite frank, and I wish it wasn't true, but we have these meetings and they're public. I post about them on my social media, and we don't have public people show up. And so I really am trying to get parents to be more involved. And so doing things like Parent University, that's what we're doing. But this was the committee's decision, which has parents on it, which has administration on it, and community members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Item 10.2. Review and signing of the South Carolina School Board Association Ethical Principles Poster. Next, we will review and sign the South Carolina School Board Association's ethical principle poster. Each board member has received a copy of the ethical principles, and at this time, I would invite each member to please read 2 of the principles and then sign the poster that has been provided. By signing the poster, you agree with the principles as stated and read aloud. What's that?
I said, do you mind reading the
Oh,
principles?
we're gonna read them
Okay.
as a group.
Oh, as a group?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
In-
great.
In fact,
So let me
what we'll do is I'll start with the first 2. If each person will read 2, and we'll go to you, Dr. Scott, next, and work our way
I need to find
to
it.
the other end of the room.
Hold on.
Does everybody have the copy handy?
No,
On your computer.
because I put it somewhere. Yes, thank you.
All right, well, I will start with the first 2. And of course, this says at the beginning, as a member of my district school board, I pledge my efforts to improve public education in my community and will solemnly try to represent the interest of the entire district when making decisions and to rely on available facts and on our judgment rather than on individuals and special interest groups. Understand the proper role of the board to set policies governing the district and to hire the chief administration officer to carry out these policies.
Encourage an open exchange of ideas by all board members during the decision-making process. Seek regular communications between the board and students, staff, and all segments of the community.
Attend all board meetings to study issues facing the board and to enact policies and official actions only after full discussion at such meetings. Work with other board members in a conscientious and courteous manner befitting the public trust place in the position of school board trustee.
Communicate concerns and public reaction to board policies and school programs to the superintendent and other board members in a professional manner. Support employment of the persons best qualified for staff positions and to ensure a regular and impartial evaluation of staff.
To avoid conflict of interest and refrain from using my board position for personal or partisan gain. To encourage recognition of the achievements of students and staff and of the involvement of community residents.
Support legislation and funding which will improve the educational opportunities and environment for our students and staff. Take no individual action which would compromise the integrity of the board or administration, and to respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under the Freedom of Information Act.
Study current educational issues and participate in training programs such as those offered through the South Carolina School Board Association, and make our district educational setting the best possible to encourage all students to achieve and to love learning.
All right, board members, if you would, let's get in front of the tables here. We will sign this. Oh, what?
Take no individual, we didn't finish.
Oh, where's the- well, then-
We have to send it to the School Board Association. We have to send it. They didn't have the rest of it. No. Because we have to do a photo to send to the South Carolina School Board Association, we need to go to the front and then take photos as we are signing. But with all due respect to some colleagues,
I do not have
we
a-
just want the head shot. Waist up.
All right, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? All right, item 11, or section 11, let's take a look at the agenda for our next meeting, for the January 23rd meeting. Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our meeting is scheduled for January 23rd, 2024. Meeting will be called to order at 5:30 p.m. Once we've called to order, we'll approve the agenda and then move to executive session. We'll cover under executive session, our public session will be recessed, and the board will convene in executive session. We'll discuss contractual matters regarding annexation, student appeals, student admission requests into the district's adult education program, employment recommendations, and certified releases. Release back to public session at 6:30 p.m. Once we're back in public session, we will have our inspirational moment and Pledge of Allegiance. Then we'll move to the consent agenda, which will include approval of the consent agenda, which will have the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, as well as classified employment releases and in-district transfers. We will then have our public participation, followed by voting on executive session items, which will include contractual matter regarding the annexation, student appeals, student admission request into the district's adult education program, employment recommendations and certified releases, as well as needed for items discussed in executive session. We'll then move to section 8, which is our unfinished business and action requested. We will do the second reading for our policies. So we'll have policy revision for policy JFABD, which is admission of homeless students, policy JIAA, educational opportunity for military students, policy ADC, tobacco-free school district, policy GBED, tobacco-free workplace, policy JICG, tobacco use by students, policy IKF, graduation requirements, policy BDE, board committees, policy KBE, relations with parent organizations, policy JICA, parentheses R, student attire, policy JIG, sun safety new, policy GBEBE, Gavin's Law, policy JIFCB, Gavin's Law. I need to make a correction because two of the policies we did not discuss earlier today, and that would be policy JICA, parentheses R, student attire, and board committees meetings. I was looking for the right letters to go along with it. BDE. We will then move to new business, no action requested, which is beginning the 2024-2025 budget process. So we'll look at the timeline, then discuss the agenda for our meeting on February the 13th, 2024. If necessary, another public participation, followed by executive session and voting on executive session. We will conclude with board and superintendent comments and then adjourn.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. I have a quick question before I ask everyone else. Item 8.8, is that supposed to say sun safety?
Yes, sun safety.
Okay.
It's
okay.
around sunscreen.
Right, well, it says gun safety on my screen.
That one says gun, it does say gun.
That is my fault, because I thought it should have said gun instead of sun before I read. So I sent that message, so I would take responsibility for that.
Well, that's why earlier when we started talking about sunscreen, I was like, hold on, something's wrong here. Okay. All right. Board members, is there any items you'd like to add to the agenda or to future agendas?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. McFadden.
I need to add a legislative committee update to that meeting, please.
All right, that is done. Anything else anybody would like to add?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Washington?
I know it has been a request previously, so I just want to request it again, that we have during an executive session, a discussion around superintendent goals and expectations for the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. McFadden?
I would like to add an executive session item.
You would like, oh,
I'm trying to say how to say it. It's going to have to be, it's confidential. So
Okay.
I just want to add a confidential discussion for executive session,
okay,
for personnel, yes.
okay. All right, anybody have anything else they want to discuss or add to the agenda? All right, well, we will move on to board and superintendent comments. We will start with Dr. Scott.
I have four things that I'd like to share. First, I'd like to say Happy New Year to everyone, 2024. Some people did not make it, so we should just be blessed and thankful and grateful that we are able to start New Year 2024. The other thing I'd like to say to Nancy Williams and your team, thank you so much for all the work that you guys have put in. We are no longer on fiscal watch, and it's because of your hard work, your experience, your professionalism, and your dedication to moving us off, you and your team. So thank you so much for that. And also, there was a brother and sister duo team that I saw on WIS TV and found out that they attend CFA. And what they're doing is a shoe drive, and it's actually started on January 8th, and it's going to March 8th, and it's a brother and sister named Jace and Jesslyn. They launched a shoe drive for people in need. And I love the quote that the young man said when he was there with his teacher. His quote was, "Help us keep shoes out of landfills and on the feet of children and adults that need them the most." So I'm going to challenge my board members and say, let's join them. Let's get on board and let's take a pair unused, let me just say that, unused shoes. And if anyone else would like to be a part of this, the information that they had is to donate unused shoes, and you can send an email if you want more information to 4, the number 4, kids, KIDSSC, @gmail.com, or you may text, and the number is 803-477-4054. So again, I will be calling for more information because I'm not sure what size shoes they need or what type they need, but I would love us to be on point to help these CFA students. And lastly, just want to say, Happy Appreciation Month to my colleagues and to all school board members. Really appreciate all of you. Even when we disagree, I still appreciate you. It's still something to learn from. So thank you so much. You guys have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Mrs. Agostini?
I'll be brief. Have a great night. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ms. Agostini. Mrs. McFadden?
Happy New Year. We've hit the ground running. This is a second meeting for me, actually. We have a lot more meetings to plan, so if you want to come to a legislative committee meeting, you're more than welcome. Our next one is going to be February the 13th. So guys, come out, take part in it, and if you want to know what's going on as far as legislation is concerned. And thank you guys for being board colleagues. It's been great. It's been a great ride, and we're starting off a whole new year, so look forward to working with you guys. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. McFadden. Mrs. Washington?
I want to say it's National Mentoring Month, so I want to give a shout out to Mr. Fluellen at Jackson Creek Elementary School. He was recognized in, I believe it was the Columbia Star, for an initiative that he's doing called, I believe it's the 180 Center. And want to say thank you to all of our teacher mentors who are mentoring other teachers, to our partnership with United Way for the Young Men United program, which is a mentoring program, as well as any other mentoring program that definitely supports students in our district. I think that we definitely should give more more opportunities and invite more opportunities for our students to get mentored. It certainly is a way to help make an impact in students' lives. Happy Board Recognition Month, and I want to give a huge shout out to the Ridgeview boys basketball team. They have been doing a phenomenal job with their recent games. They were even recognized in the top 25 by I can't think of the channel, I think it's ESPN. And so I just want to say congratulations to them for all of the hard work that they're doing. To all of our schools that played in the Chick-fil-A Classics, great job. And even to the Ridgeview girls basketball team, you traveled to Miami during the break. Well, first of all, to every coach that traveled with teams during the Christmas break, huge shout out to each and every one of you because you gave up your time to be with our students. And so again, congratulations to the Ridgeview basketball boys and girls team. The girls placed second, I believe, in Miami, and so way to go. Thank you, everyone, for your patience this evening, and we look forward to seeing you in our next board meeting. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Washington. Mrs. Nash.
Okay, I got a notification that my car is finished charging, so I'm going to keep this very brief because that means that it's been a very long time. So, but I want to say thank you to the Safety and Security Committee because it is a really great committee. And one of our students brought up something, and we have a law for having alcohol like businesses near schools, and they talked about having a law for vaping, like a vape place being near school. And I thought that was very innovative, and I think they should name the law after her. And so if you are somebody who wants to be a part and find out what's going on with Safety and Security Committee meetings, then you definitely should come. That includes board members so that you can stay up to date and have some of the questions that you have answered as well. But to everyone, I want to say thank you all for coming. We had a great legislative meeting as well, and there were people from all different sides, and we had a really good meeting, and I feel like we got things done, and that's really what's important, is that we're getting the work done. So thank you all and have a really wonderful night.
Thank you, Mrs. Nash. Mrs. Porter.
Happy New Year and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Porter. Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first and foremost, I want to give everyone a happy new year, but I want to give the board a little information, and you'll get more information about this tomorrow when it's, no, it's not a cruise. But we could look into a cruise together as a retreat. I'm open to that. I've got some places we can go too. Of course, it would be on our own dime. Yes. Nancy's over there having a heart attack. We would be paying for it out of pocket, but I know we can get some good deals. But we're very excited about this new partnership. We're going to be partnering with Care Solace. And what is Care Solace? It's a mental health coordination service that will be providing 24-hour, 7 days, 365 days in multiple language support to our families. So what we see in our community is families are struggling to find support, and they may be calling 4 or 5 different places to try to find someone who can help their student. And then when they get in touch with somebody, I don't take that insurance, I don't do this, I don't do that, and now they're starting the cycle all over again. So working with Care Solace will streamline that process, because they will take all of the information and then use their extensive network to connect people with the right support that takes their insurance and in a timely manner. And so we're very excited about that. You'll receive some more information tomorrow in our R2 for you. So please look for that information. Also, we want to celebrate the opening of our new campus for CFK. So we have a little video that we want to share, but I just want the board to know that last week we started second semester of the 2023-24 school year. However, for One Richland 2 school, well, it was a very exciting first day for them, like the first day of school. So the Center for Knowledge South students came back from the break to a brand new school.
Straight through the door, and third grade's right ahead.
You know, everything we can do is done, so we're ready.
What's it feel like that first time you're going to go walk out there and greet the kids that come in?
Miss Holly and I were just talking about we can't wait to see their faces. You excited about a new classroom? It's going to be awesome, isn't it? So you don't miss the old building? Good to know. Okay, so lots of logistics. We couldn't do it without this team making sure they know where to go because they're coming in a completely new space. They have no clue where they're going. So I'm just excited. We've been working on this for what, Miss Holly, 5-6 years? Yeah.
And to watch the progress of this building being built was amazing, and super excited to be here.
It's definitely like a first day of school.
All right, y'all ready? Yeah. Oh, actually, y'all want to see the PE room? Yeah. That's PE. Isn't that cool? Remember I told y'all about that? That's PE. That's so cool. All right, y'all ready to see the room? So this is our collaboration room. So this is where we can hang out in here some, y'all. Isn't that cool? Y'all can do your Saxon in there someday.
This is so cool.
Isn't it so big? Yeah. And y'all remember that door I told you about? Isn't that cool? Yeah. From one room to the next, you just step in and out. Isn't that so cool? Do y'all like how big it is? Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Whoa, the lockers have new stamp thingies. Oh, yeah.
What do you guys think?
This is cool. I love it.
Yeah. Is it some nostalgia looking out the window and seeing history?
It is, but it feels like a fresh beginning, and so we're putting one foot forward and looking forward to our new adventures here.
You go in the lockers, and we're gonna get your bags that are out, and then y'all are gonna unpack your new desks, okay? Feeling good about it? Ready to get settled into our new space? Yeah. All right, I'm gonna give y'all 10 seconds. Get out all your cheers, all your excitement.
It wasn't that exciting. I have to say that I was out and about after the students went to their new school, and I had the privilege of talking with a parent and one of the students. And he was just so excited to be in the new facility, and the mom was like, it's like buying a new house, is what she said to me. It's like buying and I'm thinking, I hope you're not sleeping there. But that's another topic. So we want to just thank our operations department for all of their hard work, Mr. Anderson and his team. It was definitely worth the wait. So thank you. And then, as Dr. Scott said, this is School Board Appreciation Month. And while I know we've been here for a long time tonight, we cannot close this message without giving a thank you to our school board. So I want to play a video for you because you are very important. And for our community that's listening, our board members, they give of themselves, not just during our meetings that we have twice a month. They're here during the week doing different things. They're hosting committee meetings. They are truly embracing the responsibilities that they were elected to do, which is to serve each student in our district. Not about one particular group of students, but every student that we have the privilege to educate. So let's watch this video.
January is South Carolina School Board Recognition Month. The state's theme is "In It to Win It," which serves as a reminder to our school board, our district, and community members of our board's commitment to continue to fight with all of their might on behalf of those they represent and as an acknowledgement of the exhaustive work they've already done. I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude to our 7 board members for their unwavering commitment and dedication to our school district. Your tireless efforts and selfless service has been instrumental in shaping the future of our purpose-driven, future-ready educational community. your role goes beyond governance because you are advocates for our students and their families. You're champions for our educators and ambassadors for our community. Your dedication to our schools, well, it is truly commendable. So in our journey together, we will achieve remarkable milestones, and I am confident that our future holds even greater promise. Your guidance and support continue to drive our district forward, making a positive impact on the lives of countless students. Here at Richland 2, we are partners in this work, and indeed, in it to win it.
So, board members, that video will be released tomorrow so that the community understands the work that you do every single day for our students. And on behalf of our district, I wanted to say thank you to you. So we would like to present you with a framed picture of all 8 of us, because I know you want to display this at home. You want to see me every day, just like I see you every day, because your picture is hanging up in my office. Yes. So these pictures are currently being hung in all school lobbies, because we want everyone that comes into our schools to understand we are partners in the work that we do every single day, and without you, we cannot get the work done that we need to do. We also have a Richland 2 School Board license plate frame for you to show your Richland 2 pride as you visit schools and represent us across South Carolina. Without you, we could not accomplish what we do. As I've said before, I believe that Richland 2 is the best district for our parents and our students, and it's because of the hard work that we do every day to make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. I was very relieved. I was afraid of what video you were going to show. I had
Not you driving the bus.
Well, I want to be real brief because I know we're all ready to go home, but I feel obligated to share an experience I had this weekend, and I don't want to make light of this in any way, but I did something that, I should point out before I say this. I've lived in this district my entire life, except for a few years here and there. We moved around, but I was born here, and I'm still here. I'm a true son of the South. And Sunday, I decided, I have never read Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. I don't know what to say. How do you get to be 59 years old and not read something like that? But I read it Sunday, and then I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to listen to it. So I found a copy of it on NPR, and I listened to it yesterday, and I thought to myself, he was right. How could he have been this right? And so many of the people that I grew up with said he was wrong. Now, I think some of those people are rolling over in the graves right now out in Blythewood, so if you hear a strange noise as you ride by. But I want to live in the world that he described. Of course, I say I want to. I really believe I do. In fact, some of the things he said applied directly to me as a son of the South. And I just want to say one thing to our students and anybody else listening. I challenge you to don't just read it, don't just listen to it. I've copied it on my phone. I'm going to go through it and study it and see where you fit into his vision. Because his vision, if we will embrace his vision, we'll have the best life we can have. We will live as brothers and sisters in a way that I think God intended for us to live. And I would challenge all of our students in Richland School District 2. There's so many things you can do with your time that's valuable, but I would really encourage you to read what he said and ask yourself, what can you do to make these things a reality? Now, having said that, I would like to thank everybody in this room that has somehow managed to stay here and awake this late. I did look around to make sure, I don't know how y'all don't doze off. The only reason I don't is I'm right here on the hot seat. But thank you all for being here so late, and I think we ought to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Mr. Chair.
Who would? Mrs. Washington, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to adjourn the January 16th, 2024 regular board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I think the motion was made by Mrs. Washington and seconded by Mrs. Porter. Let's do a hand vote. All those in favor of adjournment? It is unanimous. We are